Ori's correspondent Sara Firth was at Downing Street where protesters clashed with police.
Crowds on the streets of London. A spontaneous anti-government demonstration.
Take a look at the scenes right now in London. Protesters and police running through the streets of central London. They were outside Downing Street. They marched around to Trafalgar Square, back to Downing Street, and police at the moment, as the numbers have grown from the hundreds to quite possibly now the thousands, looking a little bit like they're struggling to contain this situation. There's been some heckling and some taunting by some of the protesters, though.
There's a lot of heckling and taunting by the establishment and the Parliament and local governments and councillors and police officers. They come prepared for a riot, not us. They're the ones dressed up like full military uniform. So they're obviously provoking the situation anyway by trying to kettle us in and keep us contained in one place when we should have a freedom to walk wherever we want.
Well, you can see again the police and protesters pushing and shoving one another, and the atmosphere here amongst the crowd a little bit tense. There's a lot of pushing and shoving going on. People have been chanting at the police officers, "It's your jobs next." They've turned out today to protest about David Cameron being back in the seat of power. Hundreds, if not thousands, taking to the streets of London today. Still in the evening on this Saturday weekend, people out on the streets chanting. And as you can see behind me, the police line in front of Downing Street getting tense.
The Metropolitan Police televised news 5 have been arrested and police officers were injured. This demonstration coming just days after the Conservative government elected to power in the general election.
Sara Firth is joining us by phone. Sara, if you can hear me, first and foremost, we are glad that you are safe after all that we've witnessed on the video.
Well, it's not something that we haven't seen before here in London. The anti-austerity protests under the coalition government with David Cameron as Prime Minister were a pretty common occurrence, actually. This time around, though, of course, it comes just days after the announcement that David Cameron would be back in Downing Street, back as Britain's Prime Minister, and this time not as part of a coalition because of that shock result in the end that put the Conservatives with an outright majority in the winner's seat. They've taken the reins of power, and a lot of those protesters that we were speaking to were saying that they're concerned. They're concerned about issues that they've raised many times, the austerity programme that the Conservatives have been pushing in the country, and about the general direction of the country. Nonetheless, of course, we did have that democratic election and the British public spoke, and it's a very, very different makeup you now have in the Houses of Commons, in the seats of power. The Conservatives, as we said, taking that outright majority, but also some major wins for other parties, the SNP in particular. What took place in Scotland really taking a lot of people by surprise, and the Labour Party essentially having their vote wiped out in Scotland because of the SNP. So a very different makeup that we're facing here in Britain, and a lot of big questions now about what lies ahead.